Hello and welcome to Buddha and the Coach vlog, powered by Soul Performance Academy. I'm your host, Dan Mickle. The Buddha and the Coach is a weekly vlog dedicated to looking at the teachings of the Buddha in a coaching light. And the Buddha and the Coach is proud to be sponsored by It's Called Normal Athletics. ICN Athletics helps make the extraordinary ordinary through adaptive beach volleyball. Everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy and excel in this sport, and ICN offers the programs and the education to make that happen on any volleyball court. Help them make the beach volley court a place for everybody. For more information, please visit icnathletics.com and make a donation to the 501c3 or just get some general information. We and they appreciate your support. And again, thanks to Dave and John and everyone involved in ICN Athletics. And whew, that was tough. I tried to do that all from memory this time. Sorry for the mistakes, but hey, I don't like to edit, so it's staying in there. All right, lesson 22 of Buddha and the Coach is there is no fear for those whose mind is not filled with desires. And I know I say every week I love this one, but I do love this one. Part of the reason why I love this one is I think too many times as coaches and educators, we come from a place of fear. We're afraid that we're going to get fired, or we're not going to do our job, or we're going to have confrontations with parents and coaches and officials, and we're just so consumed by fear that we have a hard time coaching. And one of the reasons that we are consumed by fear is because we have some desires that may drive that. And what I mean by that is, do we have the desires to win championships and have these great records and do all this great stuff? That then leads the fear of being fired or making mistakes because we're not going to reach those goals. So when I think about this teaching, I think about how we need to get back to, and I know it's cliche right now, but talking more about the process and what we're trying to do versus what the end goal is and the records and the championships and the rings. And we need to look more about how we're trying to develop players, so that there's no real desires for winning seasons or winning championships or any of these records. While they are all great, and I understand them as goals, I think when we start to desire that, we start to make the wrong decisions. We start accepting players that normally we wouldn't accept because we think they might help us win more games or win that championship, even though it might erode from our culture or what we've been building. We start to lose sight over what we're doing. And I think in today's sports world, and specifically in the youth sports world, we see that a lot. Trying to recruit kids, or players jumping from team to team, club to club, because they want to win, and they're not really looking at the development. And I think a lot of times we are losing sight of that as parents, as administrators. And I get sometimes there are situations where you need to leave a team or a program and go something new. Maybe it's more of a challenge. But my counterpoint is, isn't there also a challenge in trying to raise everyone around you? Doesn't that skill have more value? Say you have option A is to stay on the team that you've been on for a couple years and the talent around you may be a little bit lower. And option B is jumping to a higher caliber team where there's a highly likelihood, or at least more of a chance to win a championship or have more success. I think we need to start thinking about which of those choices is actually better in the long term. Sure, you might jump ship and go to another team and have more success and get more championships there. But in the long run, maybe sticking and learning how to help those around you rise and become better and staying with that original team might have actual more value down the road. And I think we tend to lose sight of that because of our desires. And this goes back to a lot of my other episodes and the other content and coaching philosophies is, if we don't sit down and know what our actual coaching philosophies are, we're going to run into these problems where we're going to have our mind filled with desires because we don't have that real core already filling it. We don't really know what we stand for or what we want to put out there. So we let little things like championships or earning invitations to special, competitions and those types of situations drive us when we could be relying on what our core philosophies are to keep us going and not filling up with those desires. again, I understand it's really easy to sit here and say, we don't focus on championships and we don't focus on the rings and the banners and the wins, but the more successful you get, the more you tend to focus on those things, right? It's easy for a startup team or a team that's in a down slump to say, hey, let's focus on the process and we're not going to focus on winning at all, versus a team that's, been very successful in trying to win it all. That doesn't mean that we can't have those goals. I think it's just too many times we let those desires and those goals overtake us. And again, I know this is very cliche because everyone talks about it. Everyone's talking about trust the process, do the process, and all that stuff. But I think the process itself goes a little bit deeper into why you're doing that process. And I think that's the aspect that we don't look at enough. We need to look at why we're doing this process. Forget about the who, forget about the when, and let's talk about the why. Why are you coaching? Why are you playing for this coach? Why are you playing for this team? All that stuff is what we need to look at. And I think that's where we have to be careful. All right. That's where we have to say, look, this is what I value as a coach. This is what our program is going to be. And while we will have success, while we might win championships, it's not about that. We're going to free ourselves from those desires. Again, that gets really, really tough because a lot of what we do is judged on, are we winning those championships? Coaches get fired because even though they have winning seasons and they're developing talent, they don't win championships. And for me, that goes back to deciding when to take a job. There have certainly been jobs in the coaching world that I have turned down because I knew that what I wanted to do or how I wanted to run it would not mesh with the philosophy of the program or what was already there. And that's fine. It just wasn't a match. But when I go back and review that, a lot of it turns out to be what they desired or what they wanted just wasn't even on my radar. At the moment, at least. And that is a shift. Years ago, I was really pumped up. I wanted to win those championships. I wanted to win those conferences. And part of me still does, don't get me wrong. But they're no longer at the forefront, and that's no longer what drives me. What is driving me is making sustainable and quality members of society, I guess, for lack of a better term. That's what I'm trying to push. That's what I'm trying to get to. The winning and the prestige with all that comes with it, but it's because I'm not focused on that winning. I'm not looking at that win-loss column as much as I used to. Again, I'm human. I still look at it. We all are still going to look at it. But if you no longer live in fear of those records and chasing those banners and chasing those championship rings, you're going to be free to experiment. You're going to be free to invest more in the players and do things with them that maybe you wouldn't normally do because it's a bit of a more of a risk. Because you're not living in fear. I can't imagine those coaches that come in after a successful coach, coming in after Coach K, coming in after Dean Smith, coming in after Nick Saban, Lou Holtz. The list goes on. That has to be tough because that culture is so used to winning, and that's what they're focused on. And to come in and are you going to focus on winning, or are you going to stay true to what your philosophy is and maybe what got you hired? The whole point of you getting hired for a job might be because your philosophy is you're going to build the character of the program and the prestige of the program. Maybe that will come without winning for a while. Are they going to be able to handle that? And can you handle that? And again, I think too many times that happens. And it's amazing to me because when you talk to a lot of coaches, especially in the volleyball world, I talk to coaches all the time that say, hey, I take a twos team, a threes team, a fours team at this club because I just love the atmosphere. I love coaching. I don't have the pressure of trying to win the bids and the national championships. I get to develop the players. And my question is, why does it have to be the twos and the threes and the fours team? Why don't we have that same attitude with the ones? Why can't we still work hard and have these philosophies and not have those desires? And if the results happen, they happen. But for some reason not for some reason, it's because people like clout and people like winning things and having things that other people don't have. So they push for that. And I think more and more we're seeing it where parents and players have to decide, am I going to play for a team where I have to put all this time and effort in? We're solely about winning. If we do not win a championship, if we don't win this tournament, if we don't win a banner, we don't win medals, it isn't successful. Or am I going to play or put my kid on a team where they're going to become awesome people, they're going to become awesome citizens of the world, and they're going to develop and they're going to grow and they're going to be so much more? The problem is it's been such a this or that scenario. Why can't it be both? Why can't we get back to being successful but also not having those desires? Hey, this is our schedule, this is what we're going to do, we're going to play the best of our abilities, but as long as we leave the team better than we came in, then that's success. Man, those words sound great, but try that once with a top elite team that's traveling all over the country trying to win a national championship. Hey, I know that we barely had a winning record, but you all came out better players than you came in. No one's going to buy that. And part of that's because we don't want to have that conversation. It's become so much about commerce. We're afraid to lose those parents. We're afraid to lose those players, that they're going to go somewhere else. And we're going to lose not just the money, but also the quality maybe of our players. So we don't have those conversations. So then internally we have that conflict all the time. And I think that's kind of what we need to get back to. What is success? And it's different for every coach, every team, every club, every program. But I think that's a discussion that we should have. We don't just need to assume I'm going to Club A because they're going to try for a national championship. I'm going to Club A because I want to become a better player. And if I win a national championship, that's going to be awesome. And again, I think those are the conversations that we're afraid to have. We're afraid to lose players. We're afraid to lose prestige. Because if we don't focus on the winning, we don't have that resume to say, hey, that's why you should come play for us. Because look at all these national championships. I mean, it's funny, arguably I don't even know if it's arguably, honestly, the best coach of all time. If we look at John Wooden, all those championships. If you talk to anyone that played for Coach Wooden or the people around Coach Wooden, I bet none of them went there because of the championships. They went there because of him as a coach. Sure, they knew that they might get a championship, or there's a high probability you're going to get a championship. But how many players actually went there because they wanted to get the championship versus they wanted to get the coaching? And that's, I think, what separates the elite coaches from the good coaches. There's a lot of coaches out there that'll win national championships and win the big ones, but are they actually elite? When you look at the Dunnings, Russ Rose, how many of those players went to play for Stanford and went to play for Penn State volleyball to win championships versus going to play for a coach of that caliber? And that's what we need to turn it back on. Too many times it's, hey, well, what's the rest of the team going to be like? Is this team going to compete for championships? When it should be, do I have an opportunity to learn from one of the best coaches in the area? Do I have an opportunity to every day walk in the gym and be taught by someone that gets it, that knows it? And I don't think there's enough emphasis put on the coaching. And that's from all sides. I don't think the parents put enough emphasis on the coaching, and I don't think the clubs and the coaches put enough emphasis on the coaching. How much of those budgets for, any junior sport is turned back into coaching education to make their coaches more elite? It's not. It's for the training stuff. It's, for the equipment, for the travel, all of that, because that's the desires. That gets us to those big tournaments, that gets us out there and seen, versus spending the money and sending their coaches to academies and sending them to seminars and stuff that's directly going to help, because there isn't that big shiny, ring at the end of it. The investment's not there. Our desires are wrong. We're filled with the wrong desires. Our desires should be educating the best coaches, educating the parents, educating the players. But again, it goes back to our desires are those national championships and those rings, and we're chasing them. So that dictates everything that we do. How do we fix it? We invest. We invest in people. We invest in the players. We'll spend more money on jerseys and uniforms for players than we will for mental training, for strength and conditioning, for education. How much has your organization spent on the mental health of your players? How much has your organization spent on the strength and conditioning of your players? How much has your organization spent on coaching education? How much is your money spent on parent education? How much time have you spent educating parents about your sport in general, about your program, about your coaches? We're afraid to have these conversations because parents might get upset, players might get upset, coaches might get upset and leave. If you don't have players and coaches and parents that want to invest time in everything, if you have a coach that doesn't want to take educational courses, if you have parents that don't want to come to parents meeting and understand the philosophies, are they worth having in your program? That's the decision that you have to make. But to me, that's where we get off track. We're so focused on the selling of the club. Our uniforms have to be the best top uniforms. We have to have 20 jerseys. And we have to go to the prestigious events where everyone's going to get seen. But then the stuff that really matters, we're falling behind on. So I think that's what we need to look. Those are the desires that we have to look at. We have to stop filling ourselves with desires of winning national championships and having these big, huge programs and these big, huge teams that dominate everyone, and look at why we're doing it. Why did we get into this and how do we fix it? All right, so that's lesson 22. There's no fear for ones whose mind is not filled with desire. What desires are filling you up so that you're afraid to coach, you're afraid to try things, you're afraid to do something that's different, that goes against the grain? Because your desires have filled you with the need of something else. Would love to hear your comments and thoughts. Make sure you subscribe, comment, post, share, do everything. Please, love to get this community to continue to grow. Thank you to everyone that has already subscribed by hitting that button or whichever side it's on. I appreciate it. Thanks again for everyone that shares this and forwards it and shows it to their fellow coaches and their parents. And we really need to have these conversations, and I love starting them. And again, hit me up in the comments and let's talk about this. Peace, much love, don't suck, and ask yourself, remember, is it one day or day one? The choice is up to yours.